Fables of the Fen, Stories to Read Aloud by Sherry Lambourne. Chapter 5. A turtle's life is sacred too. God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple. 1 Corinthians 3:17. McMallard was enjoying the sunny day in the pond and paddled toward the shoreline. He waddled up on the grass, and his small webbed foot stepped on something hard. It wasn't a rock. It was softer than that. As he looked down at his foot, he saw that whatever it was moving ever so slowly. It was Trollinger Turtle. As we all know, turtles sometimes eat small ducks. So McMallard slowly and carefully backed away. When Trollinger didn't move toward him, McMallard said cautiously, "Oh, hello." "Hello," said Trollinger in a deep, low, raspy voice, with both eyes barely open. I am McMallard," he stuttered and introduced himself. "I have heard," said Trollinger slowly in a dark, deep voice. "I'm just napping in the sun. I had a difficult day. Those silly little fish bother me, swimming around and around and around. They make me dizzy. But I sure scared them." Of course." McMallard was still uncertain, as Trollinger had quite the reputation for being the terror of the pond. "I heard about that," answered McMallard. "I meant to snap at them to frighten them away, and accidentally got a hold of one of their tails. I had fishtail for lunch. Purely unintended, of course." That means he didn't really mean to do it. "The story is all around the pond. That was pretty terrible, even if it was accidental," said McMallard. He swallowed hard, realizing that maybe he was being too honest with the turtle, especially being in this close proximity. That means he was nearby. He reminded himself to be very careful. "They just don't let me sleep. All that jumping and chattering and laughing. I get grumpy when I don't get enough sleep." "Do you get grumpy when you don't get enough sleep? I know I do." "I am sure they don't mean any harm. They are young and full of energy." McMallard began to relax, realizing that if the turtle hadn't eaten him yet, he may not want to. "Yes, but they bother me. I don't like to be disturbed." "You are not the only creature in this pond," McMallard said bravely. "You have to allow room in this pond for others." And allow room in your heart, too, McMallard thought, but he dare not say that out loud. "I don't need others," said Trollinger. "I only need myself." He strolled slowly away and slid into the dark, muddy green depths of the pond. McMallard was relieved that the conversation was over, and that Trollinger hadn't wanted him for lunch. The next morning, the old man and old woman from the old white house on the hill came down to the pond. They were dressed in old clothes, and both walked quite slowly with canes. The geese, fish, and turtles scurried to the middle of the pond and hid from them in the cattails in fear. Human beings and wild creatures do not usually spend much time together. The old man and old woman circled the edge of the pond and began to lay long yellow strings into the water with pieces of meat hooked on the ends. The pieces of meat on the end of the yellow string were old and a little rotten, just the way turtles like it. They were trapping turtles, hoping for turtle soup. The rotten fragrance moved slowly through the pond all morning long. Later that afternoon, Trollinger smelled something wonderful and became hungry. "Yum," he said to himself. "I think it's time for dinner." He crawled out of the mud and began digging with his large front legs. Sure enough, there was a large piece of meat within his reach. He opened his mouth and quickly bit down on it whole. When he started to chew, he realized that a large hook was lodged in his mouth. "Ouch!" he cried. He was caught. Trollinger tried to crawl away back to his muddy hole where he had been dozing, but the string attached to the meat held him near the edge of the pond. "Help! Help!" He tried calling out loudly in pain, but the hook and the meat in his mouth kept him from crying very loudly. All that came out was a mumbled groan. Soon several friends in the pond heard his cry and came by. "Oh my!" said Guinevere, looking at that large hook in his sore mouth. "He's really caught. What shall we do?" "I think we do nothing," Finlock said as he swam by. "That old sourpuss turtle chomped at my tail fin and got quite a chunk of it the other day. See?" And he turned around to show his tail to the crowd that was gathering. "Yes, he got himself into this mess," said Gertrude Goose. "He has been such a grumpy old turtle, and he has not made any friends. Nobody likes him. I don't think we owe him anything." Gustavus swam around Trollinger and looked at him closely. "Well, we know he's not the nicest creature in the pond, but somehow we need to help him out of this mess. Gus scratched his gray, feathery chin with one of his orange-webbed feet to think. Fitzwater and Flanagan came swimming over. Flanagan shuddered as he saw the mean old turtle. "Uh-oh," he said. We need to get out of here." "Wait a minute," said Finlock. "I am rethinking this. He's caught with that big hook in his mouth. He is in pain. I know he took a chunk out of my tail fin." Finn again glanced behind him. "But he needs help. I think we need to reconsider." "But what can we do?" said Fitzwater. "I have an idea," said Finlock. "Come here." The three fish huddled close together and held a conference. When they were finished, Finlock said to the others, "The three of us have a plan. We're going to chew on the string and release Trollinger from the line. Then he can get away." Gustavus interrupted. "But how do you plan to get the hook out? He can't eat anything with that horrible thing lodged in his mouth." "I just don't know how quite yet," replied Finlock, but he was thinking deeply. "Okay," said Gustavus, "get chewing on that string, and we will all try to think of a way to get the hook out." About a half-hour later, everyone could see bits of string floating on the surface of the water, and soon Trollinger was free. He was so grateful, but still couldn't speak due to the hook in his mouth. He was in terrible pain. Gustavus walked over to him. "How are you, Trollinger?" Trollinger just mumbled something low and gravelly. "Let me try something. Open your mouth and let me see if I can pull that hook out with my beak." Although Trollinger was known to also chew on geese feet, he agreed to accommodate Gustavus and not bite him. But no matter how hard Gus tried, his beak was just too big to get deep enough into Trollinger's mouth to pull out the hook. "I think it may be hopeless," said Gustavus sadly. "Let me try," said McMallard. "My beak is smaller. Maybe I can get it." "Okay," said Gustavus reluctantly. That means he wasn't quite sure it was a good idea. "But be careful." Trollinger opened his mouth wide. Despite his fear of being chomped on, McMallard slowly and gently put his head into the turtle's mouth. The turtle's mouth was so big, Mick's head disappeared for a while. Everyone looked on with fear and empathy. That means they felt sorry for him. Fitzwater was concerned that Trollinger had swallowed Mick's whole head. It took a couple of tries, but McMallard finally got a hold of the hook and pulled it out slowly. "Oh!" cried Trollinger as the hook came out. Trollinger immediately began to feel so much better. Trollinger groaned slowly and painfully. Still quite sore, but it feels much better." "Yay!" everyone exclaimed in unison. Trollinger looked around at all who had helped him and cleared his throat uncomfortably. "I have to admit I am humbled. I got myself into trouble, and you all helped me out. I thought I didn't need anyone, and was irritated so often by all of you making noise with your constant activity in the pond, especially you little fish." Trollinger lumbered over to Gertrude. "You are right, Gertrude. I have been a grumpy old turtle." Then he crawled over to the three fish at the edge of the pond. I apologize, Finlock, for biting your tail. Please forgive me. Sure, said Finlock. No problem. It didn't hurt that much. Scared me more than anything. But that bite in my tail reminds me that I have to apply myself and learn to be excellent at whatever I do, especially when it comes to swimming fast. Finlock paused and thought for a moment. You are forgiven, Trollinger, he said slowly. The three fish swam happily away, knowing that they would no longer be in fear of Trollinger Turtle and could practice swimming and jumping together. McMallard also walked to the pond and paddled away, feeling really good. He knew that he had really helped someone that day. Later that evening, after supper, Guinevere swam over to McMallard. Thank you for helping Trollinger Turtle today, McMallard. I know it couldn't have been easy for you to put your head in that giant turtle's mouth. But God made all life sacred, even when it's a grumpy old turtle. You did a kind and brave thing to help him get that nasty hook out of his mouth. I am very proud of you. That evening, when going to bed, McMallard felt full inside. Peace and happiness filled his whole body. Helping others gives you a great feeling, McMallard thought, as he fell fast asleep under the soft, downy feathers of Guinevere's wings. The words of Guinevere whispered softly in his head. God made all life sacred. Let's talk about this. Who was in trouble? Press pause. Did Trollinger deserve to be turtle soup? Why or why not? Press pause. How did he get into trouble? Press pause. How did the rainbow fish and McMallard keep Trollinger's life sacred? Press pause. Listen to the song, Sacred. When God created the flowers, his imagination went wild. Every color of the rainbow in every shape and style. When God created the creatures that live in the sea, he thought about the pleasure they'd bring to you and me. Sacred, God made life sacred. He set it apart from water, land, and sky. Breathing, all life is breathing. Each breath it takes brings glory by and by. When God created the insects, the birds and cows and snakes, he thoughtfully planned every one. He made no mistakes. When God created the people, in his image Adam stood. He knew this man would care for life and bring about its good. Sacred, God made life apart from water, land, and sky. Breathing, all life is breathing. Each breath it takes brings glory by and by. God gave us a choice to make a difference in His world, to give our lives to something that's more than self-fulfilled. When will you cherish life so that others may be blessed? Do you hear the calling, the highest of the rest? Sacred, we hold life sacred. God gives us power